I don't run an organization. I'm an individual artist. I'm also a professor here at Carnegie Mellon in the School of Art. I teach socially engaged art practice. And I've traveled pretty extensively in creation of work, and I also always make work in the city I live. Like Scott, I actually came from living in the Bay Area for 16 years, and I moved here 6 years ago. And I can tell you some of the things I tell my friends who still live in the Bay Area and people I meet in other cities and other countries about Pittsburgh. I mean, one story here is I just went to Shanghai 2 weeks ago to represent Pittsburgh in the International Biennial. Now, the Shanghai curatorial team chose London, Madrid, Tehran, Ulaanbaatar, and Pittsburgh. So besides Los Angeles and New York, Pittsburgh was the only city represented in a pavilion at this biennial. Outside of Pittsburgh, there's actually more buzz and voice about the arts community than oftentimes there is inside. One of the other things I often say is that Pittsburgh has, on the top end, and I'm speaking maybe more about the visual arts community, we have the Warhol, the Mattress Factory, the Carnegie. It's very healthy. On the bottom end, we have a lot of scruffy DIY startups that are doing great, but we're missing a middle. And the bar is not set very high, to be honest, and I think it needs to be set higher. But the other thing I say is that that middle is an incredibly open and fertile ground which you can create and change civic culture as an artist in this city quickly. So I'm going to talk about two projects that I've been involved in and one that my students are currently doing, just to give you small examples. So 4 years ago, I moved into this space, which for 3 years prior was vacant in East Liberty. So, and then, you know, after several years it became this. I was running a billboard, two restaurants that competed with each other that were also really socially engaged art projects. Go next. So the first one is the Waffle Shop. The Waffle Shop is a restaurant that coaxes in the public to basically participate in creating culture together. So our premise is that we have a talk show, and anyone could be in that talk show. And in a sense, Pittsburgh is creating the culture of this artwork, right? So you have people who don't consider themselves cultural producers or artists. You can just keep going. We stream it all online live. You got folks who'd never be hanging out together all of a sudden talking on a talk show. Even though none of us have ever been on a talk show, we don't know how to behave on one miraculously. People started to create their own shows. We had over 6,000 people actually participate, not just coming in and buying waffles, but actually being on the show. It also, I became the largest work-study employer at Carnegie Mellon University, getting all these students out of the university and into the city, interacting, and essentially serving the public, literally and culturally. This is a tough thing to do in San Francisco. Eve Picker, who was just here, rented us a space basically originally for $500 a month. You can't do that. My friends in San Francisco are like, extremely jealous of that. Waffle Shop just closed after 4 years, and that's because I decided to put more attention into Conflict Kitchen. This is our billboard that is still operating in East Liberty. So the Conflict Kitchen, maybe talking to what Steve was mentioning, my desire was to live in a city that was not only culinarily diverse, but culturally and politically diverse, in a place where you could have discussions about global issues. I didn't want to be in a sort of region. I wanted to be in the center of things. So myself and my partner, Don Gillespie, created a spot that essentially became that. Conflict Kitchen is a takeout restaurant. We change often. This is our first Iranian version. The real idea of this project is education. It's to create a site for pedagogy and engagement around politics and discussions of countries that are usually only discussed in our media in a very narrow manner. And it's in Pittsburgh. One of the interesting things, we work with local populations, Iranians, which is a large community of Iranians here in Pittsburgh, never a Persian restaurant in the city. We became the first Afghan restaurant in the city. There is an Afghan community here, rather small, but still here. The first Venezuelan restaurant, the second Cuban restaurant. We do interviews with people who are living in those countries and present them to the folks, our customers in Pittsburgh, to start conversations. One of the interesting things is the project has gained attention. It's not just locally, but internationally. We've been featured, we went to Cuba recently. We've been featured in over 300 publications outside of the United States. So and often it's the story of Pittsburgh has this international project that looks at, a critical stance on policies and ideas of, the United States. We also do events. You could go faster. This is a live Skype meal with Tehran, Iran, connecting young people here in Pittsburgh with young people in Tehran over a meal. This is in Pittsburgh, and this is in Tehran. Connecting young people with Kabul and filmmakers in Afghanistan. Looking at being hyper-local and international simultaneously. First Persian Cultural Festival Pittsburgh's ever had. We have school groups that come and visit. So now it's become, educational in multiple ways. Recently, Al Jazeera came to Pittsburgh, Arabic language news station. Has never been to Pittsburgh to do a story on this city, and did a 3-minute piece that went on all their Arabic language channels. Now, I also teach, and my students are currently doing a project called The Drift, supported by the Sprout Fund, which uses the rivers as a site for cultural engagement. This is actually what looks like a lunar mooncraft, and you can actually walk inside it. And then it seems like you're inside of a cave, and it has an observatory on the top. An iceberg that seems to miraculously floated down the Pittsburgh rivers was unleashed at a Pirates opening day game. Projection on different sites throughout the river. So it's really activating the rivers as a site for cultural production. Next. This is a drive-by, a float-by drag show by some of my students that happened at a tailgating party. So, anyway, as a sort of open canvas for social and cultural engagement, I found Pittsburgh to be a place where you can do quite a bit. But again, I think we haven't quite reached. A lot of my students leave. A lot of my Carnegie Mellon students come from other places, and they're still thinking that there's these better opportunities out. Although some of them end up trickling back, and we're hoping to increase that.